Is your mic on?
You got to repeat everything you just said.
You're good. Determine a quorum. Director Foss.
Present.
Director Lau-Lancaster.
Here.
Director Maury.
Here.
Director Walker.
Here.
Director Wall.
Here.
President Buchholz.
Here. Move on to adoption of the agenda, please.
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Rachel. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. At this point, we have audience communication that finally showed up here. And Tiffany would like to speak, I believe. Did you just come running in the door?
I did, so forgive me, I'm going to get back. My name's Tiffany DeBow. I'm a mother of two in the district. Good evening. Today is the start of Public Schools Week. Public education, though not mentioned in our Constitution, has always been a part of the conversation in our country. There is repeated documentation that the founders of our country believed that education was critical to maintaining our democracy, that those who were to govern themselves needed to be armed with knowledge to do so, even stating that it was essential for what we now call the American dream. And that it was something that the public should invest in because the public benefits from making sure that all citizens, regardless of means, could learn. Coincidentally, in a little over a week, we as members of the Linn-Mar community are tasked with carrying on that legacy by casting our votes to continue investing in the PEPAL Fund that is used to keep our schools sound and comfortable for all students to gain that critical education that the founders talked about. When you look at the actual individual estimate we are all being asked to contribute, it is really not a question on if we should or not. I personally cannot think of a better way that this money could be used in my pocket than the return on investment I get by sending it to the schools. Not only is it our children's future, but it is all of our futures. It is the draw of our community, and it is our home values that we are investing in. I thank our public schools, the staff, administration, and this board for working to make sure that all Linn-Mar kids receive a high-quality education, one of the best in the state, and I encourage my fellow community members to vote yes to renewing PEPAL on March 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have is one. So now we'll go to the informational reports and our partners, Marion Economic Development Corporation report. Emily Russ and Brady Quinn, welcome. We always call you Medco. I thought I'd give the whole name for a change.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Emily Russ, and I am the Director of Marketing and Workforce at Marion Economic Development Corporation. My colleague Brady will be sharing here shortly as well. He leads our business retention and expansion work here in Marion. We like to come once a year and share a little bit about some of the things that we're working on that have an impact on the school district. One of the things that I lead is Community Premise, which is an ever-evolving resource that can be used to benefit students with more information about high-demand jobs and pathways to those jobs. Most importantly, jobs here in our community, in our area. So what you're looking at here is our dashboard. So these are some of the things that we have accomplished in the last school year, or excuse me, in the last year. This graph on the left is the percentage of graduating seniors between both Linn-Mar and Marion that have self-reported a pathway to pursuing education or training beyond high school. We started tracking this because the state of Iowa, with Future Ready Iowa, their goal is that 70% of graduating seniors have a path beyond high school by 2025. From what I understand, that has been reached, and so those goals, I would assume, will be changing here shortly, but you can see where we're at for 2023. On the right, between both school districts, we also began tracking the work-based learning activities that students are able to get engaged with. Across both districts, freshmen through seniors in high school, 39% of students are involved in work-based learning activities, and those are outlined in that little blurb right there that starts with Venture, which I'll share about in just a second. Another program that you may be familiar with is Community Build. There we go. So this is a program we started we're currently in our third school year, working in partnership with both school districts and the city of Marion, purchasing deteriorated homes, and students come together between both districts to renovate those homes. So it's been, as you can imagine, a fun project. Very interesting to see some of the work that happens and seeing students get to do those things has been really neat as well. And then also going forward in this year, something we're placing a renewed focus on is owner-occupied workforce housing in 2024. So you'll hear more about that later this year. On the back sheet is a partnership that we're also in our third year in with Mercy Medical Center. 2 weeks ago, we kicked this off by taking students that are participating in healthcare academies at Kirkwood Community College between both districts that might be interested in pursuing a patient care position at the hospital. We took roughly 25 students. They got to tour all areas of the hospital. I quickly found out that healthcare is not for me, but definitely for students a great experience. And so they are getting the opportunity to apply for an opportunity there for a paid position, and those will be happening. Those interviews will be happening in March. So it's just been fun to come alongside students and help them do some of those things like getting to tour, helping them with their first resume creation. I came here last week, talked with students about that, and so just holding their hands through a little bit more of a harder hoops to jump through sometimes. So neat partnership. And lastly, as you're all familiar with, is Venture Academics. This is a fun program that we get to partner with and make connections with. Alyssa will reach out and share with me what they're looking for. Specifically, some of the things that we helped to make possible this year were classroom presentations, off-site learning experiences, community-based projects, so connecting students with businesses in the community that have a project that they would like completed by students, and then just any job shadows or connections within the community has been something that we've been able to play a part in. Something else that I wanted to make sure and shout out is the new strand coming in the fall of 2024 that Alyssa has worked to make possible, called Exploring Education, and so that I think will be a really neat experience for students. That was really fast, but that's what I have. Does anyone have any questions or clarifications? Okay, toss it over to Bree.
Good evening, everyone. As Emily mentioned, I'm Brady Quinn, also with Medco. I do our business retention and expansion work. As part of that program, officially 3 years now for me with Medco, so we started to try to just show some trends of what we've been seeing over the last 3 years. I will say this year, 2023, the process was was about getting the data in front of the company, or the survey in front of the company, and then when we would meet, we'd be able to have those conversations around those pain points that they noted within that survey. So then the hope would be that then I could be a better connector, whether it to be Emily and Alyssa, Community Promise Venture, or just to our other friends at the state level, et cetera. So that helped me be able to actually increase the number of visits that we had this year. So we had 105 in-person visits. And just for comparison's sake, last year was around 80, and the year before that was around 60 or so. So we're continuing to see a growth in the program, which is great. I think part of that is awareness, but also obviously it's about relationships. So being able to get out there and meet with them and being able to see that benefit of the connections we're making. One of those connections is actually related to this next piece in this products life cycle that we're kind of showing here. You see quite an increase from 21 into 23 for both introducing new products in the last 3 years and then also anticipation. A lot of that honestly is to reaction from coming out of COVID, wanting to be more diversified in their customers and their products. But also a big part of that is something that we were able to help with around these Manufacturing 4.0 grants. The state gave a matching grant. State never gives out cash, so we were going around, hammering on doors to make sure that our smaller manufacturers were aware of that. What this grant allowed them to do is automate their process, make it more digital. So then you're not replacing people. What you're actually doing is utilizing your people in a more efficient and better way for your company to become more productive. Oops, skipped way ahead. Sorry about that. There we go. So we still saw strong sales from our respondents in 2023. Not quite what we saw last year in 2022, which we saw almost 75% show an increase in sales. We're still around 60%. We're still seeing a lot of positive results from our local organizations. A lot to do with, obviously, with the growth related to technology and the diversification of products and people as well, technology, all that. And we have a resilient community. I think we all know that, whether that's through COVID or through derecho. So to be able to support those strong operations, that's our goal, and hopefully to continue to see that trend in 2024 as well. The expansion piece is also a big thing that we try to make sure we're aware of with our utility partners as well. But a big thing in the last, that anticipate in the next year is more around what I'd call modernization. Again, part of that is back to the manufacturing and automating that, but then also looking at other renewable energy options, whether that be solar, wind, other green-related stuff. But then also artificial intelligence is something that continues to be, obviously come on the scene. I think we learn about a new option every other day. But that's something we're continuing to see where we can partner to bring some experts in. We obviously know we can't learn or know everything, so we just got to make sure we have good partners, and that's part of what we're always trying to do at Medco to make those connections. And jumping into that is also related to succession planning. That's another area where we continue to try to bring experts and connect with our local business owners. We understand a lot of them are getting to that retirement age. And what is that plan, right? We want to make sure they're locally owned, so they're still making that impact in the community that matters. Then also wanting to partner with us and strategically with our fantastic school districts. So that is something we continue to be very intentional with by hosting a couple of different things in our office targeted at the local business owners, or we'll call them the C-suite executives, just to make sure that they're aware of the options that are out there and to just learn from each other as well. So that's been a fun group to get together. Makes me get to the office 7 a.m. I know these guys like to work early, right? Get them in before and get them their coffee and a little light breakfast. And it's actually, I would say, one of our most well-attended intentional connections since I've started. So, I mean, supply chain, we saw a lot, obviously, in relation to looking at what hampered delivery times, freight, fuel, container costs. I mean, that's been the focus of supply chain in 2023, is more around costs. Obviously, 2021 and 2022 coming out of COVID, it was all about the supply, when you're going to get it, the timing of that. All that has now been normalized and built in to the bidding or the quoting process. The hope is that'll minimize impact, but more importantly, set realistic expectations, right, with customers. So now it's more about this inflationary pressure that's continuing to chip away at those margins, right? I mean, that's the feedback we continue to get. You know, all we can do again is continue to provide partners. I was out at Trevero this week. Actually, Justin was there as well a week ago with Leadership for 5 Seasons. Obviously, that's an asset that we know is there that can be an option related to that. We're continuing to make introductions here in our little nook of the corridor here in Marion. I mean, the biggest thing with workforce is, I mean, everyone needs people. It just depends on what you're looking for, right? Obviously, the hiring near the end of the year cooled off significantly. It's just more about utilizing people more efficiently, but also it wasn't as much as an employee market as it was previously, right? Without the everyone hiring, we'll call it, there wasn't that those individuals jumping for $1 more here or $1 more there, like we saw, especially in our manufacturing partners. But I will say one thing that we also ask is about attractiveness. How attractive is the area for outsiders? So hiring from outside the region, we kind of let them understand where is from outside the region. Is that Des Moines? Is that outside Iowa? But I will say this was the first year that we saw a decrease in what we felt like was the encouragement, and a lot of it was related to the political environment at the state level. I just hadn't heard that in years. Obviously, we've continued to see and watch the news and read the paper and hear different things. But for our business owners to be noticing that and making certain notes of that, that's something that we'll continue to share with our state partners and our legislators. Just knowing that, control what we can control, and the local level is where we can make the most impact. And like Emily mentioned, we continue to support workforce through our pipeline initiatives and these partnerships with Marion, Independent, and here at Linn-Mar. Lastly, Marion continues to be a great place to do business. One thing that we continue to see is just like everywhere, the concern is lack of supply of skilled and unskilled workers. I mean, that's the increase to 4 to 5%. I mean, that is what everyone's looking for, right? It's not just about warm bodies anymore. They really do need a certain skilled workforce, which is something we're continuing to try to understand where we can help. Is that at a college intern level with some of our local organizations who host college interns? How can we help them get more in tune with the community? Or maybe, again, additional programs at the high school level like we've seen with the CNA program as well. That's all I had. I know that was quick as well. I know you guys have those copies. Feel free to always reach out, email, phone. We're always happy to chat further. But any questions or comments from?
I've got a quick question. I don't know if this is more for you, Emily. This graphic on the front, on the first page, percent of graduating seniors on a pathway to pursuing education or training beyond high school. Where does that data come from? Is that from the state? Did you get any indication from them? I mean, obviously there seems to be a pretty clear trend downward there. I don't know if that's a better question for, I don't see Melissa here today. Did you get any indication from her why that might be trending in the way that it is?
I didn't, and you'll also see down here on the below the other pathways, so students that are pursuing an apprenticeship or going directly into the workforce. Those numbers have seemed to increase too over the years. I think perhaps students are just seeing that some training, like Brady was sharing, is important. Not necessarily going off to a 4-year or 2-year. Maybe they're pursuing more technical, shorter training opportunities.
Okay. Thank you.
Brady, I have a couple questions for you. The first one is you're still trying to recruit new businesses, right?
Yep.
To our community. So with that said, are the businesses that we have, are they fully staffed, manufacturing, et cetera, or are they short of people too, like we hear across the country?
I mean, I think everyone has what they need right now. Obviously, growth is the goal. To grow, they're going to need people, but also I keep going back on the manufacturing side is technology will be a big impacted as well. I mean, we have, you drive out on 380 right now, you see zero zone going up, right? What was that 600,000 square feet, I think, if I remember correctly. Our focus in Marion is not obviously a project like that, but how could a supplier come in and out into our park? But as far as back to your original question, I mean, talking to Timberline is probably the one that we talk to quite a bit. Tom Pintock's on our board. I mean, they naturally cycle through some folks too at that, what we'll call that entry level. I would say there's not people jumping around in that anymore, but they're holding on to who they can now, I think, because of the environment. I wouldn't say that we're back in COVID when we were really hurting for people and there was that pent-up demand. You just needed people to get the work done. Where now there's not as much pent-up demand, so you definitely saw that soften up, and people are realizing, well, we shouldn't let everyone go like we did maybe previously in COVID, maybe made that decision too quick, and then they were trying to catch up and hire people for so long. Where now I think they're at a good pace and being able to meet up, keep their workers busy, then also keep their staff fully engaged as well. I mean, there's obviously still openings for different organizations. I think it's more so also manufacturing-wise, as I keep going to that. I mean, there's been some shift changes. We have some organizations who've gone to the 12-hour shifts. A lot of them do then only have to work 4 days, and then they get 3 days off. So there's been different changes within the way they operate that I think we're continuing to try to see. Is that a trend that's here just in Marion? Is it across the metro? what does that look like? Honestly, for a daycare situation, we just met with a manufacturer locally who struggles with daycare. They do 8 to 8, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So 12 hours of daycare is just hard to find in the community. So those are the kind of conversations we keep having. Not as much, I guess, on the we need people. I would say the last year that's definitely gone away. I think it's more so now just trying to get in that intentional growth mode and create that internal company culture that maybe people sacrifice a little bit by just getting people in the door. If I'm making sense at all, I think it has softened, but at the same time, there's still needs for more of these skilled positions rather than entry level.
I know Rockwell is doing that right now. They're hiring a number of people in the manufacturing side, in the apprenticeship side, and you basically have to pass an exam. You know, you're there for a couple weeks, and if you don't pass these tests, you're done.
Right.
You know, and it's hands-on tests.
Right.
You know, we talk about Rockwell, we talk about engineers and all that, but they have a large union
Yep.
labor force as well. So are you still recruiting business? You are recruiting businesses. Are we getting any traction on that?
So honestly, at the state level, there's RFPs that come through. That's managed by the Economic Alliance. A lot of those are asking for big ground. And honestly, I haven't seen, at least in the time that I've been involved in this, asking for direct access to rail. I mean, we don't have big ground, we don't have direct access to rail. So we'll continue to, as those come through, we'll continue to, the ones that fit for Marion, we'll put our best foot forward on there. But this intentional strategy where I talked about you have a zero zone coming to town or something similar like that, how can we go talk to their suppliers, hey, or talk to them, hey, what supplier would you like closer to you, right? Or something similar to that, to be able to right size fit them out at the industrial park in Marion. We do have a couple projects that I think hopefully will be announced soon as far as getting some dirt moving. At the same time, it's hard when all you're hearing about is the idea of interest rates decreasing, right, this year. So I know I'm interested to see if dirt will start moving as quickly as we think in the next month. Actually, probably could have been moving it this whole month, right? But I think that'll be the key, is to kind of see, do we see some folks starting to pull off on making a land purchase or moving some dirt just because they want to maybe see a 6 instead of a 7 or a 5 instead of a 6, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah.
Good.
Appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I had one other question. I heard some 7th graders taking a poll and doing a study about a 4-day school week. And the question I had for you all was, have you seen any interest from the business community on a 4-day work week?
Honestly, it's maybe. Yeah. I mean, we have one partner who does a 4-day work week. But I've heard it, right? You hear it nationally, internationally, but not locally, honestly, besides this one organization who's, I think, doing a lot of different innovative things just to keep their employees. I mean, it's definitely a morale thing for them, and I don't know if they work more than the 4 days, if it's 10-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts or what they do, but yeah, that's an interesting question, though. Have you heard of that, or is that something I'm just curious from your perspective?
You know, we've seen some school districts across the state entertain the idea.
Yep.
You know, there are different drivers for each one and different circumstances that you've got for each one. You know, here's a board, we've not talked about that at all, but
Yep.
I was just kind of curious what's the pulse in the community?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll talk to Mark here tomorrow, and maybe we can be an organization that tries that out or something. We can try it. We'll put it to the test, folks. We'll put it to the test.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, winter assessment. Been looking forward to this, and Bob's doing this himself today, correct? You were stuck.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to provide a snapshot of where we are with our winter assessment update. Data just by itself can sometimes be like, what does this mean? So hopefully through my presentation today, I can provide some context for the charts and graphs that you're seeing and let you know where we're at in our process moving ahead this year. Most of our data will be FAST data that we're going to share. And again, that's a formative assessment system for teachers. It is a universal screener. If you think back to the early literacy legislation, that was K3 literacy that was enacted to that, and it was suggested that we do K6 literacy, which we do. On the mathematics side, we do K4 for our mathematics screening. So if you didn't see the grade 5 and 6 bars in the graph, that's why. But I can tell you exactly what we're doing at that level to try and meet student needs, to see where they're at so we can help them with instruction moving forward. And again, this is only one piece of data. So if you are a principal of a building and if you're thinking about those principals and how they presented their building improvement plans to you, I think last fall, this is one piece of data that kind of helps them put the puzzle together as they move forward to see maybe this is where we're at right now. We're steering our course true. This is where we're at right now. What adjustments do we need to make sure that we reach those goals that we've set? The FAST data does use some what they call healthy indicators. One of the healthy indicators that we look at is the number of students that are screened in our system. Another healthy indicator that doesn't necessarily show up on the rest of the slides is the number of students that meet that 80% meet or exceed that benchmark. Another healthy indicator is that are we keeping the kids that have met benchmark or scored above benchmark? Are we keeping in there at each interval? And then another aspect of it that we look at is if we have kids not meeting benchmark, how many of those are we moving to benchmark in our interim testing? So the first slide is just healthy indicator number one, the number of kids screened. You can see how we compare. We're on the top. Grantwood AEA is in the middle, and then the Iowa scores are the last bar there. And their goal is 95%, and right now we are at 80% this first screening period. Then as we break down the data by grade level, you can see that the percentage of kids screened and then the percentage at each grade level and benchmark. And I want you to just kind of tuck away that first grade score right there, 68%, because I'll come back and talk about that a little bit more at the end of the presentation, why we're looking at that anomaly and really what it means for Linn-Mar kids. So that's one thing that we're very aware of at that level. Again, this is just a snapshot and overview. If any of you really wanted to drill down in depth, we can set up a time and we can certainly work through it. We have cohort data. We can drill down to individual teacher over time. So there's a lot of different aspects that we can look at with this. Next is district mathematics. And again, this will just, Linn-Mar is at the top, Grantwood AEA is in the middle, and the state of Iowa is at the bottom.
Can you go back to that one just for a second? Are we at 67% because we're not screening all the way through 6th grade and everybody else is, or?
Yes, that's what I attribute it to.
Okay, that's.
Yes. But then again, this is not required. This is something that we choose to do. It doesn't fall within the early literacy legislation for that, but at our elementary level, it is a useful piece of data.
That's a very important fact. Yeah.
Great catch.
Then that slide may need a little disclaimer on it so that we can understand, because given also we were here to hear this presentation, if I saw this as a tool for this meeting and I didn't see that asterisk, I would not have had your information. So
Sure.
little explanation in that little white spot.
Absolutely fine. And what's happening right now at our 5th and 6th grade level, our students are receiving readiness assessments, and those readiness assessments are tied to the major work of the grade level standards at that particular grade. And what we're doing with those is helping diagnose students, what gaps do they have, what strengths do they have, and that really can let our instructors, especially as we delve into illustrative mathematics, really make sound instructional decisions on pacing, what do I need, what are kids coming to me with as a 4th grade teacher or as a 5th grade teacher out of the elementary. These are the strengths of the program, maybe these are some holes, and maybe we have to back up a little bit and address some of the things like, we're really missing this at 4th grade, here it appears in 5th grade, what can we do to align our curriculum in a more systematic way with those things. So I'm really excited about those readiness assessments. I think it will be really good over time as we continue to work and evolve on those things to see how it fits. I did not give you cohort data necessarily, 10 years or however many years of cohort data that we have, but just I went back and toggled between where we're at this year and previous 2 years, and we're right in the ballpark. And if we follow the cohorts, I would say generally speaking, we're 2 to 3% ahead where we were last year at this time with that particular grade level.
So if we're not screening those kids because it's not a requirement that we screen them, are we using another screener? How are we catching those kids?
We're catching them through those readiness assessments that are tied to the standards that we use throughout our mathematics instruction.
Like so in the classroom with
Yes,
teachers?
in the classroom. It would be more of a curriculum measure than a screening measure that we were using right now at the intermediate level.
So just to make the graphs a little easier to I went back to the district reading, and they both say Linn-Mar 9 schools, 3,907 students, but you're saying the math one is only K4. So then it's not 3,907 students and it's not 9 schools that's hitting the 60. So I think the chart should reflect that, not just an asterisk that says that, but I mean, it's really not saying what it is.
Do you know?
Which is confusing.
Do you know what the percentage screened is for K4?
Yes, I can find that out. I don't have it at the tip of my head.
Okay.
Well, if we looked at just the grade level mathematics, well, let's go back here.
Okay. Okay.
That's screened by grade level.
Okay.
Let me add just a little context to that for 5-6. We don't think the screening data through FAST would give us the data we want that aligns with our curriculum. And so that's why we're not going to take time to screen. The math screener is really just a basic tool to kind of find out where kids are at. And we'd rather use the readiness assessments like Bob's talking about so that they align directly with our curriculum, and then we can prescribe what we need to do for those kids. So we're doing everything that's in there. And we also can't manipulate, this is a state site for Panorama, so we can't change that it says 9 schools or 6 schools, or there's things that we also don't capture in other data, which I think I talked about maybe last fall when we looked at the Iowa assessment data. Remember we had that one 4th grade that wasn't showing up? I have no way I can change that in the Panorama system. So that's why it's kind of confusing when those look like that.
I wonder if we can just add something so that you know what I mean, like we talked about, perhaps a little disclaimer that, and that's uploaded to the site tonight. If we can update that and get that so that those who are looking at that understand that, because people will pull that, and I don't want that to be
Yeah, if you don't have Bob explaining the chart, then at home when you're looking at this, then we look like we're 20% below Grant Wood, and that's not great.
And that context is very important on why we're doing what we're doing. Because I had that question of, well, if other people are doing the screening and we're not, it's because we found a better way to do it. And so often the state is forcing everybody to go into a certain set that sometimes obfuscates and confuses intentionally. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, I can certainly provide those updates. That's not a problem at all. One of the most interesting things that I think in this whole winter data presentation is this next. And again, I'm going to give you some context to this data. This is Excelsior Middle School as a school, and then as grade 7, and then grade 8. What we're doing for the first time this year is using the FAST screener with students at the middle level. And the students that we're screening at the middle level fall into 3 different groups. Number 1, the students that are persistently at risk, the students that have some that are high risk, and then, or excuse me, at risk, and then the last are new students to our district. So this is not every child in Excelsior or every child in Oak Ridge. This is data as far as just the 3 categories of students that I had mentioned earlier. This is the first year of implementation of a Language Arts Live that we're using as an intervention for those kids also. And it's really hard to see on just a slideshow. The horizontal line is the benchmark, and then there are 4 different categories that go with it. Above the benchmark is low risk, and on top of that is college reading. Below the benchmark line, starting from the very bottom, is high risk, and then it moves up to some risk with that. So as you look at this data, what we're really looking for is the number of students that we're moving away from that low risk and pushing that bar up. You can see we didn't make much traction with 7th grade right now at Excelsior, but if you look at grade 8, you can see we've decreased that number and we're moving those kids forward because of the interventions that we're using. And again, in speaking with Erica about this, things to remember that they're just in the learning phase with these materials. They're just in the learning phase with their FAST since they've never done it before, and they're just in their learning space with their intervention groups and how to use this tool to better help students. We had a little more traction with our middle school data. As you can see, left is Oak Ridge as a whole, and then you can see in the middle is 7th grade movement, and then the far right is 8th grade movement that goes with that.
Can you explain this one more time? So this is not all students.
No.
And which students is this?
Students that come out of the intermediate, because we fast test through 6th grade, that have fallen into persistently at risk, or they're at risk, or they're new to the district.
Okay.
Look, is our blending strong enough to move these students? Is that what we're missing in our instruction? Is that why we have the dip? And I would say the support of our directors, the support of our principals, whether it's providing resources, time, or energy, that's what's moving the needles in our building and moving them in the right way. From a systems approach, what do we need as far as professional learning to help teachers in their classroom move the needle for their students? So we often think of designing backwards with that. If we want teachers to do this, what professional learning do we have to supply for principals so that they're able to support that in an efficient, effective way? So it all starts with central office. If central office does this, this allows principals to do this, which enables teachers to do this, which should result in enriched student learning or higher achievement anyway with those things. And as we've delved into this, and this being the first year that we've shared those building improvement plans, just last Wednesday we had two aspects. We started our meeting with K-8 principals and coaches, and that was all on mathematics. So again, we're looking at walkthrough data. How does that fit our vision? What kind of successes are we having with our illustrative? The second part of that meeting, we invited high school down, and they joined us, and everyone had their building improvement plan. And we had principals collaborate, as well as coaches, across instructional levels. 10 minutes on what is going well with your literacy, or what are some stumbling blocks with your literacy. 10 minutes on mathematics, this is where we're at. These are some things that we're doing, share practice, and last of all, on their social emotional learning plans also. So again, it's a collaborative effort. It's not just, we don't use FAST and it just gets on the shelf. Any data that we're using is actionable, and that's what we want from it. Because if we're going to give any kid an assessment and we don't do anything with the data, why are we giving it to them? That's just a huge waste of time.
Going back to that last, can you go back to that? Okay. Do you have the numbers, and I assume you have the numbers, but do you have some graphs that represent all of the students like you had with the elementary kids?
That's a great question. I did not pull this information. I relied on Erica to send me the information to give like an overview. So that's something I can certainly follow up with her.
Okay, I would just like to see, how that compares, because this is taking this very specific subset.
Sorry to jump in.
No,
and
go ahead.
I was supposed to be gone for this, so I didn't want to stand up there and just Bob did all the presentation and take his credit for that. But when we moved board meetings, I was able to be here. No, we don't have anything for 7th and 8th grade literacy for all kids. This is the only measure we have. And when we talk about at risk, we don't mean like at-risk individuals for the at-risk indicators that you're probably familiar with. These are persistently at-risk readers, meaning they flagged red on FAST twice in a row. So if they did that coming out of 6th grade, and before we had like a different level of reading class, so kids that were on maybe the proficient pathway would take their foreign language, Spanish, French, that type of thing, and other 8th graders were placed into a reading class. This is what we've tried to do instead of that, is to have a prescribed, what's it called? Language Live curriculum for these specific students, so that when they leave 6th grade, if they're not yet there, we're still doing things to address their reading gaps in 7th and 8th grade.
So are you only doing FAST for those kids?
Yes.
So you're only screening those kids?
Yes.
You're not screening all kids using FAST?
No, not past
Just your
6th grade.
at-risk
Right.
or new students?
Yes.
How are we catching kids who come out of 6th grade not needing this, but then maybe they don't continue that success in their 7th grade reading level, and how are we catching them if we're not screening all students?
Yeah, that's a whole other, so the buildings each have a process for tracking kids, looking at intervention data, whether it be behavior, attendance, grades, all of that stuff. Teachers do that in their team times at the middle school. But we're basically giving them the list after 6th grade and saying, here's the priority list of kids. These other students that have gone K through 6 have either shown growth or consistently demonstrated growth that they don't need to be in a literacy intervention. And before, of course, we didn't have that. It just ended at 6th grade. So that's why we're really trying to target this specific number of kids in 7th and 8th grade.
I think it would be really helpful when we pull, like, again, it's great when we're having this presentation, you're here interpreting these slides for us, but like when I opened this on Friday and I'm like, I don't know what the data is telling me. So if we could add, like just in the white space on the right, an explanation so that when someone pulls this and they're looking at it on their own, they're not taking it out of context or assuming it means, like I thought this was every middle school student, and then I was like, explain to me how 92% are at high risk or some risk. That concerned me because I didn't know what I was looking at. So if we could add just really brief explainers to these slides and update that exhibit so that they're not taken out of context when they're looked at by community members or concerned parents, things like that, because I know I was confused.
That could absolutely be done.
Thank you.
And I think we do live in an age of misinformation, and adding that will provide some clarity.
Not only misinformation, but disinformation.
Yes,
Let's be
I
clear on
agree.
that.
The other thing I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, have we transitioned Nathan and Bob from NWEA being available maybe in the past to these grades, and now this is the first time we're using FAST to try to use it as a screener? I think to Britt's question, we've got a way coming out of 6th grade that we know that we're going to serve kids and follow kids, but another way to catch them would be the ISAS scores at the end of the year. So that would be another way for us to flag. But I think there is definitely a need to have a larger conversation about, do we need a screener for every student? So that's something that we'll continue to talk about.
Yeah, and this is always an ongoing process. As we look at back, Erica and Nathan and people at the middle level may say, we need more data, or we need to include more kids in this, or no, we've captured what we need to, and this is where we're going to stay right now.
How often are you at the middle level? How often are you screening using that FAST? Do you guys do that every 3 months? Every quarter?
Fall, winter, and spring.
Okay.
Would be our assessment windows for that.
I guess the only other thing I'd add, just a thought. I understand after your explanation why we're not using the FAST assessment with 5th and 6th graders. You're doing these in class, whatever. But then when we do things like this, it looks like there's gaps in our data. Like we're jumping from 4th graders to persistently at risk or new 7th graders. So if there was a way to tell that story through data so that it doesn't look like we have this hole, I think that would be helpful as well, because again, when I'm looking through the data and just trying to process, okay, what questions am I going to have? My first question was, where are the intermediate buildings? So that would be helpful to know if there's a way that we can show that in some way.
Absolutely.
Okay, Bob and Nathan, we appreciate this. Thank you very much, because we do get a lot of questions this last couple years coming off of COVID and all that. So all this information is well taken. So any more we can get, keep it coming, because it's important. So thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, Justin, Katie, Career and Tech Ed Advisory Report.
Unfortunately, I was ill and unable to make it, so Justin. Ta-da.
I actually had a work commitment at the time, but I was able to connect with Mark Mark Hutchison in the time after the meeting. And so this one we just had was a little bit more well-attended than the first one we went to. So and the entire group was meeting, I believe, just last week to have just a little bit more in-depth time to talk a little bit about what their plan and approach is to continue to evolve. And so I'm waiting for an update on that. What I heard from Mark, though, is that so far the CTE committee, career and technical education group, really feels that they've got a lot of good offerings for the kids and for students. What they're fighting is that some of the other non-CTE related electives at the school are really popular, and that sometimes is more attractive to the students than the CTE pieces. So it's a little bit of that, it's almost a good problem to have, but it is a pull that they have nonetheless. So I have to report.
Okay.
When do you guys meet again? Do you know?
I don't know offhand.
Next time, I'd be curious, when I was on that committee, they always talked about needing to expand more down into middle school and get kids aware of all of these opportunities before they start registering. I would be curious to know how that's going.
Yeah, good call. Thanks.
All righty, board visit, Lynn Grove. I believe all of us attended, right? I think it was 100%, so that's good. It was a good visit. You weren't able, you were ill. Yeah, sorry about that. So.
Katie didn't want to share her germs with us.
Anybody, and we appreciate it. Anybody, any comments or thoughts? Went well?
Oh, we had a great student guides as always, and my group told lots of little fun stories about all the classrooms as we walked by them, and so I enjoyed the day, and I enjoyed getting to talk with the staff as well. So I'm always appreciative of them taking time out of their very busy and focused schedules to give us some insights.
Yeah, kind of to share with the audience, when we go to these school visits, they bring students in to lead us, and how excited those kids are, and how that's going to help them in the future, in my opinion. It's fun, because they just light up. They're just so excited. They know your name. They know who you are. It's kind of fun to do, so that's...
It was one, I want to say it was Lynn Grove. There was one teacher that was saying that something like 18 of her students in her classroom all volunteered to be the leaders, which made it really hard to pick.
Yeah.
Usually it's just, a couple brave ones will be, and one class, almost everyone volunteered to take part. So that's a great show of the leadership qualities that, we're growing in those students.
Okay. 405, Marion City Council. I attended February the 8th, and it was pretty non-eventful. They're getting a little bit of friction right now from some outside group, which always adds to the drama, if anybody's been there. It's
Not us.
It's interesting, but anyway, nothing that pertains to us on that one. You had the next one?
And the same, nothing that pertains to us on the 22nd either.
Righty. Okay. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee report.
Awesome meeting, and I just really appreciate this team. I'm just going to give you some quick bullet points to share. The February meeting, we spent reviewing the DEI strategic plan, aligning actions that the committee has completed over the past 2 years. It was really impressive to see the way to communicate where we've been and where we're going. Each strategic plan area has goals, and they have been completed through district action. The committee then reflected on completed action steps. I think it was an aha moment. You could just see the room go, oh, yeah, we did do that, and we have done this, and we have moved forward. There has been conversation that sometimes we feel a little stuck, and as a newbie on the group, it was fun to see just the needle has moved in this group and what they've been responsible for moving forward. To date, DEI committee has influenced 10 specific action areas across the district, and in the future at board meetings, DEI will be attempting to provide an update from the team that I will speak for them, but let them tell us what they would like us to know. Right now, this is an overview as I'm a fly on the wall kind of thing, and I'd like them to be able to speak on what the importance of their work is and how it influences the district. So anyway, this is an awesome meeting, and I want to thank Nathan because he led us well, and also there was really good, healthy conversation, I thought, around that meeting. So thank you very much.
Okay. Finance audit, February the 19th. We've had some, as you well know, some pretty intense finance and audit meetings, talking about budget, talked a lot about early separation, just talked about a number of those items. Have some thoughts, John, or do you, Britt?
There's no thoughts. It was a good discussion, continuing the ongoing budget discussion. I'm continually impressed at the level of detail and thought. That's not that I don't expect the detail and thought, I do. But just the way that it's being brought forward and all of the things being considered in these tough budget discussions. And I appreciate the different scenarios of, plugging in the numbers and this is what it'll look like. And those are important conversations to have because as of right now, SSA has still not been set. So we're flying blind in setting this budget. We're supposed to submit the first round by March 15th, and we don't know our main revenue source yet. So, no, it's really good conversations around the budget, and then just overall good conversations around, the work being done around the upcoming PEPL vote and the facilities updates. Just good job.
It's frustrating that at the State House that they aren't keeping to their own rules and that SSA has not been passed yet. We've heard 3% is the latest that's being talked about, but until it's done, it's not done. We'll continue to listen more. It has been interesting. I agree, Britt, on the professionalism and the details in the budget planning. And then just lately I've heard in the news about other districts going through budget as well, and some having some pretty drastic and severe cuts. So, it's just a reminder that we're not alone, and we're charting our own course. So,
some thoughts, or?
In addition to that, we talked about facilities, and we're going to be pulling together a stakeholder group this Wednesday to talk about the indoor athletics piece there. So we're excited about that.
And I'd like to touch on what Britt said too, because, Amy has her cabinet, she has all the building leaderships, and everybody's giving input into this. So this is something that's we're working on. It will move forward. And when it comes to our budget, we are going to set a budget. We have to set it by a certain date. If we luck out and get 3.5%, 4% allowable growth, then we'll amend that budget to bring it, because we know we have more money then. We're doing everything on the scenario that we're only going to get 2.5%, right? 2%. So if we get 3, of course, that's a bonus. We'd love to have more. So.
We have to submit the beginning March 15th, and then we resubmit in April. So we do have that flexibility, but it's really not flexibility. It's guess for March 15th and then fix it in April.
But the problem with that is that when we file it in March 15th, that's when the state publishes it. Mm-hmm. And and I've heard now from other districts as well, their frustration with the state's new formula of how that will be publicized. It is intended to make it look like the school districts are raising taxes when it's not. But that's the new guidelines that the state's got. And so we're going to be in this period where we've got a number out there that could get refined up or down based upon what SSA finally comes in at. But as well, the formula that they have now shows context differently. And so it's intentionally showing them context that isn't quite associated with reality. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to continue to communicate with that. And when our constituents and taxpayers and residents in the area read it, they're going to have to look at it with a huge grain, a block of salt, to understand kind of what's going on.
Are you suggesting that the state is trying to make public education look bad?
I think people can read, they can read the information for themselves.
appreciate that.
You're
Justin.
limited to
Thank you.
300 characters, right, in explaining on that sheet of paper, and those
Correct.
300 characters can't be that property values went up all on their own?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, and with that, so the rates that we set with that first publication, that's our maximum. So we can make adjustments to any of those levies up or down, but our overall tax rate can only move down from that first publication.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, we'll work on it. And Britt, we have an update on the table from Britt. Were you involved?
I'm going to make this really quick. So legislative update. First funnel deadline has passed. So in your packet, it's kind of divided. So we'll just start at the top. SSA, the House has passed a bill at 3%. So that gets sent over to the Senate. The Senate did not introduce their own bill for SSA yet, so hopefully they'll just take up the House bill at some point in the near future. There was an amendment on the table in the House for 6%, and it did get debated, but ultimately turned down. 3%, if that is what passes, that will be good for us in terms of we won't be on a budget guarantee, but it does leave, I think it's 116 districts across the state on a budget guarantee. And just for context, the fastest growing district in the state of Iowa at 3% will still have to cut their budget because it will not be kept up with the cost of inflation. So it's not always about declining or increasing enrollment. It simply is the cost of doing business. So.
You know what district that is, Britt?
Ankeny. Next up, AEA bill. There are now 3 versions floating around, and it's just out there, so I don't have a whole lot of information. But the House came up with their own version, the Senate came up with their own version, and the governor is adjusting her version. So we just kind of have to keep seeing where those are going to go. The section I kept, the first section is the what's still alive after the first funnel, which means it's been approved by a committee on one side and either placed for debate or then will get sent over. And then there's the second section is at the very back. Bills in limbo, which just means they passed out of their original subcommittee but didn't actually pass out of committee, but they may be tied to appropriations, which means they're not dead. So they're just, if someone picks them up, they might do something. And then the last page is bills that did not make the first funnel. But as a current reminder, they're kind of dead, but nothing is really dead until they close session. So anything can be tacked on. That is a habit they have of the final appropriations bill or the final catch-all bill of the year. They just start tacking on amendments that are the bills that didn't make it through the funnel process. So I would say I would love higher than 3%, but I'm happy for us specifically at 3% because, again, not on budget guarantee, but we could still, that is not the cost of inflation, so it's still going to cost us a lot more to do the same thing. And we did Day on the Hill. The 4 of us went. I'll just share my thought on that. I thought it went really well because we met with almost all of our representatives. We got to sit in on a subcommittee hearing on early literacy, which I had never sat. I've watched them on Zoom, but I've never been in the room. I thought that was a really interesting process to be able to observe. We didn't speak, but we did observe that. But just a thank you to all of the representatives that took the time out of it was funnel week, so it was a very busy day, and we had lots of really good conversations. So, you guys add anything else?
And just one quick comment too is you know, there's a lot of people online and a lot of people here that are really active in the AEA situation, and if the AEA gets broken apart like it's looking at, that will affect our budget as well, because a lot of things will be passed down here too. So just all of those pieces put together, just keep challenging everything and pushing everything. We've got a lot of representatives on our side. We felt pretty good about it, but needless to say, there's a power at the House and at the Senate that kind of controls things. So.
I will say they gave us, based on the Department of Management, did some calculations, and we get 3.8 million flows through Linn-Mar to Grantwood AEA, and the current estimate at cost in the private sector to replace those services, if we can find them available, is $4.2 million, and that's if they're available. So when Barry says it could impact our budget, it's not just, oh, we get the money now. It's going to cost us more to do the same. One last thing I'll share. Last time we hosted the legislative preschool visit, that bill did make it through the funnel. So the increase for preschool funding is still alive, which would be great for our program.
Okay. Superintendent Kortmeyer.
Thank you. Sharing a few district honors and highlights tonight, and it's just really hard to keep up because we're constantly updating the website. So I apologize because I know there's some new honors up on the website as of today, but some orchestra honors. We had 166 through 12th grade students who were selected and performed at the Paramount on February 3rd. We had some teachers get to lead and direct that night as well, so congrats to them. STEM honors, congratulations to 3 Oak Ridge middle school students for placing first overall in Future Cities regional competition. We have an Excellence in Arts honor. Congratulations to Autumn Zeringer, Linn-Mar High School student, for being named the Gazette's Excellence in Arts Award. We had a National Ceramics honor as well to Eason Pullard and Adian Thornburg for winning a spot in the 2024 National K-12 Ceramics Show. Barb Lemmer was recognized as receiving the 2024 Iowa Golden Owl District Winner Award, and it was presented by the Iowa Department of Education last week, as well as the National Future Farmers of America was there and recognizes agri-science FFA teachers for their work. We had a POMS honor, where congrats to the varsity POMS for recently placing second in their routine and 11th for their jazz routine at the National Dance Competition. Tiffany spoke tonight about National Public Schools Week. I really appreciate that mention. That is also scrolling on our website, wanting to recognize the good work that's happening across the nation, across the state, and here locally with our public schools. We've talked about this a little bit already tonight, but we continue to work through different budget cut scenarios. Been keeping the staff informed, whether it's through the webinar that John and I offered in January. I did a short video update for them on February 9th. We have talked about early separation a couple of different times at the board table, and tonight in the personnel report, I just want to congratulate. We have 11 staff members that are being mentioned tonight as taking early separation. We did end up with 13 of 15 spots being spoken for. 2 of those teachers had previously been on previous personnel reports. So congrats to our teachers. We appreciate your dedication to all of our Linn-Mar students, staff, and families over the course of your careers, and you will definitely be missed. PEPL, we are 8 days away from our PEPL vote on March 5th. We're super excited. A week from tomorrow. We've got a few new video clips that we've been pushing on social media, letters or newsletter items. A mailer should have arrived in our residents' mailboxes last week just to really promote the vote and try to answer questions. And in most or all of our communication, there's a QR code that takes an individual right to the website where they can find out more information on that. Talked a little bit about legislative updates already. Meeting participation in the last I would say 6 weeks. John and I have been out to meet with various groups, whether it's been our elementary PTOs, our Linn-Mar School Foundation, the Marion Leadership Group through the Chamber, the Winter Circle through the Chamber, the Lion Learning Session, our Rotary, our volunteers. So anyone that was willing to sit and listen to our presentations, we really appreciate it. We met with the City of Marion recently, Bob and I, to review our Safe Schools plan that is on the consent agenda again this evening. We continue to work with Donovan Group on various communication strategies, met with United Way recently, and John and I attended the Iowa Superintendent's Finance and Leadership Consortium conference last week in Ankeny. And our session that we went to over that course of that those couple of days was really focused on the presentation of the budget, which will be coming up here in the next few board meetings. And lastly, just an update on our facilities projects. OPN is working on drawings to bid in late spring for the repurposing of the LRC. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, the Linn-Mar Indoor Activity Center, we're having a couple of facilities advisory committee meetings to just regroup, think about where we've been historically with that project and plan as part of that larger facilities master plan, take a tour of the high school facilities, and we'll do that in one evening, and the second evening we'll come back and we'll talk with the group and have some brainstorming sessions on what we saw and maybe what we'd like to see moving forward there. So it'll be a chance just to regroup again. The performance arts venue, value engineering opportunities, John's working with McComas Lucina to see if there's any of those opportunities for them, as they were awarded that bid, and the contract has been signed with them. And then the new admin building continues to have geothermal, and we're getting drywall up, sprinklers, and we're getting excited because we keep asking how soon we can start to tour. And so we've got Andy Park working on some potential dates for the board and LRC staff beginning in April and May. So with that, I ask if there's any questions.
Ask about the tour. So you already answered
Read
it.
your mind.
Thank you, Amy.
I remember doing the intermediate buildings, and it was so exciting to see, because we got to do it a couple different times, them come together, and so excited.
Okay,
hard hats.
unfinished business. We're going to policy 401.10 for the second reading, exhibit 501.1 in your packet.
A motion to amend the second reading of policy 401.10, licensed personnel early separation, as presented in exhibit 501.1.
Motion by Rachel, second by Melissa. Questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll go to early separation discussion, and we'll facilitate, any questions or anything you have. And basically, I guess just ask for your thoughts and what you'd like to do. So.
Now that we have officially passed and updated the policy to read all licensed personnel, as we talked last week at the special meeting, that really opens it up to the administrative group as well. So licensed personnel in the district really is two-pronged approach with our teachers, which include our counselors and our nurses, and then the other side would be our administrators. So as we continue to work through the budget and the budget cuts, again, this is a strategy that helps in times where, you need, whether it's to hire an employee behind an individual that is at the stage in their career that they're willing to part with the district. That's an opportunity, and there's always possibility, although just like I shared with the teachers, we can't promise this is going to happen, but if we have a candidate that's fitting out of our teaching group, that may mean, one less opportunity if we have to, or when we have to exercise reduction in force. So those are the reasons you would do it. As John and I looked at that and had an opportunity to see what we could afford to offer as far as management fund, we would have you consider to offer up to 5 packages for eligible administrators at the same rate as the teachers at $50,000.
We talked about that at the Finance Audit Committee meeting about the management fund and what it could sustain, and I agree with the recommendation.
Is that, are you going to put that into a motion?
No, I want to give everyone else a chance. I just wanted to comment that the committee talked about it, and I'm okay with the recommendation. I feel comfortable with the management fund being able to handle it.
Just wanted to put it on the record again for folks to understand that the early separation allows us, for normally salaries are paid out of one fund, one silo. We've talked about this a lot, but again, I want to make sure that the public understands this, that the salaries are paid out of one silo, and the money for early separation is paid out of a separate silo. And so when the silo that's got the salaries in it gets tight, you can pay from the other silo and have less consequence for your regular staffing. So it is a way for us to pay salary from a different silo and help us manage our budget. That's what early separation does, and it's a budgeting tool, and it is very important. So
Let's be careful how we say.
I would just add too that what it also does is that if you have a teacher in the district or an administrator in the district who has been there for 20, 30 years, who you are able to hire behind them may not be that far along in their career, and their salary may be lower. So that's the other way that it kind of takes some pressure off the general fund.
Just want to clarify your terminology. We're not paying their salary out of the management fund. We're paying the early retirement separation package out of the management fund. I just don't want any confusion that we're paying salaries out of two buckets, because we're not. We're just moving, the early separation package comes out of a different bucket, which relieves the stress on the general fund bucket. So just wanted to clarify
Words
that.
matter, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I will make a
Distinction's really
motion
important,
if,
Justin.
This is discussion.
oh, just discussion. I haven't.
Got it.
Feel free.
Go.
I make a motion to approve the 5 packages offering early separation as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Britt, second by Melissa.
Melissa.
Just quick comment, Justin, I appreciate that, clearing that up. That's very good, good comment. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we'll go to new business. We're going to talk about appointment of a new board member. And I'd just like to make a couple comments, first of all, because, you know, when we made a decision to appoint somebody, I thought that sounded like an easy process. And we were very, very fortunate to get a good handful of candidates. So needless to say, we have to make a decision as a group. You know, and I think we need to keep in mind kind of the importance of this. We just went through a major election. We were very fortunate, thanks to a lot of folks that helped us. But, you know, we talk about the board. Well, this is the board of directors of Linn-Mar Community School District. I'm proud to be a member of it, and I'm also proud of the group that we presently have. So through that process, things that we had to talk about when we wanted a qualified individual. And I want to be cautious how I say that, because the unfortunate piece of it is not everybody's going to get it. We're just going to take one person. So there's going to be people that are going to be disappointed because they really have an important piece to be on here. Just keep in mind the people that aren't elected. A year and a half from now, we're going to have another election. So basically, this position is strictly to fill from today through the end of the year, which is 2025. Not the end of the year, but the end of the school year. So with that said, you know, we've all had an opportunity to go through the applications. We've all had an opportunity, and you know, and we really need to fill a role on the board that complements the rest of the board. That's really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to put a person in a seat. That's really not what our goal is because we know the people that applied have a desire to move this district forward. We know everybody has a desire to do it. And also the major time commitment in it is more than I think most of us realize sometime. And this last few years especially, we do spend a lot of time on the phone, et cetera, because of things that are popping up that we really don't plan on seeing. But so with all of that said, you know, like I said, the commitment to time, the skill set of the person that we decide to bring in, all of those pieces are very, very important for our next step moving forward. So we're open to discussion if anybody would like to or have any other thoughts.
I just want to thank the people that put themselves out there. It's not easy, and I'm just going to agree with Barry, this process is not great for that, but I just want to thank every applicant because you're putting yourself out there, and it's hard when we all know that. So.
Just to add to one thing that happens during the process when it's a longer time, right? They did not have the time that typically you would have. In that time, you have more discernment, you have more conversations, and you learn more about the board, you learn more about the role of the board, you learn from one another, you learn from other pieces, and this individual had to make a decision quickly, had to also say, I'm available and I may have to reschedule my whole life kind of thing. And it's all the other meetings we don't talk about as far as even school visits and those things in the middle of the day. I think also, for me personally, when I went through my list, you're right, every one of these candidates could be an asset to this group, but there's one that for me would say brings something that maybe we're missing, or would complement something that we're not doing right now. There's candidates sometimes that you're already serving in an amazing role, and you're already serving the district in an amazing role. That person has more work yet to do. Sometimes we want to bring in a new voice. So for me, when I went through all of this, my one question was, what would make a complementary position to this team that's already existing and demonstrated commitment, availability, and also I said a willingness to learn, because it is going to be fast and furious. We're in the middle of a pebble vote. We're in the middle of, and this individual is going to have to be able to gather information and retain information quickly. And just so you know, I still have my cheat sheet right here, and I used it for all the slides that just came through. So there are tools to learn, but somebody has to be able to go, boom, right away. So that is I'm looking forward to that individual to join us.
I think a couple things that were key for me as I was trying to think through what was most important. One was because we didn't have the opportunity to really interview somebody or to really get to know somebody over the course of how we typically would in a campaign season, where we're learning about their beliefs and their personalities and all those kinds of things. I leaned more toward the applicants that are known to us, just because we already kind of know their skill sets and their strengths and the things that they might bring to the table. And I felt like some of the others we would have the opportunity to get to know over the next election cycle, and they would have the opportunity to work with us as they campaign, and we would have the opportunity to support them in learning more about the district, and we would have the opportunity to get to know them a little bit more, to kind of go both ways and getting to know one another to ensure that it's the right fit. So there were two candidates for me that felt like we had, as a board, and those two candidates have worked the most closely together and have shown the most direct involvement in the district at this level.
Very grateful to everybody who put themselves out there. It is tough, and it's not something that this is the second time that I have had to appoint somebody to a seat since I've been on the board, and that's a tough thing, especially because it feels like you're making this decision kind of for an entire community that generally would happen with an election, and the community would get the chance to make that decision. So it's kind of a lot of pressure, and I would just echo what Melissa said. I think for me, it's making that decision based upon what I know about the candidates that I do know, and figuring out who would fit the best. But that's not to say that there's some clear advantage between one or the other, right? It's just you're making the best decision that you can make with the information that you have. So that's all I've got.
I'd add to that. I heard the word complement. I heard fit the best, right? And where I see that applying those words, defining here, what is complement, right? Somebody might hear that and say, oh, well, they're just a yes person who just does what everybody else tells them to do, right? And I thought about this earlier. We've had, all of our votes tonight have been unanimous votes. And one could, from the outside, could look at that and say, oh, well, it's because they just always agree with each other. And that couldn't be further from the truth. When I think about somebody who complements or fits in, right, what I think about is somebody who prizes service above self. Somebody who, I know when there are questions on stuff that maybe I don't, I don't have a position on immediately, I know I do, and I know the rest of you do as well. We'll ask the questions so that we understand, so that when it comes time to vote, we've all become comfortable enough with it to be able to say yes. It's not that we just blanketly agree with everything, but it's that we've done the homework. we understand the pressures and the issues, and we've come to the understanding and we've resolved that is the best path forward. Sometimes when people see just a unanimous votes for everything, they assume, well, nobody's doing the homework, they're just doing what they're told. And in reality, the back working of it, there is so much that goes on just to think through the nights that we've all spent just thinking through, reading the documents, and just asking ourselves, what is in our best interest of the kids, the district, the community. So that's where I think about complement. It's not, are they look like us? Do they think like us? Do they talk like us? It's more about what perspective of the good for the community, right? What is that service above self? So I don't know if unless anybody else has any other, conversation, I'd love to make a motion.
Right ahead.
I'll make a motion to appoint Laura Thomas to fill the vacant board seat through the completion of the term in November 2025.
I'll second.
Motion by Justin, second by Katie. Appoint Laura Thomas to fill the vacant seat to finish the open seat that we presently have through November of 2025. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Now, you need to come forward and take the oath right away. Immediately.
Right now, right now. Come hither. Photograph.
He's coming. He's coming.
Kevin's got it. Kevin's got it. Thanks.
You didn't know that, huh?
Thank you.
Congratulations, Laura. But you look so nice.
All right, I gotta take this off so you can speak too. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of your elected office in the Linn-Mar Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I will.
Thank you and congratulations.
A little better photo. Can you turn? Yeah.
It's your seat.
Voting member not right away, right? Is she a voting member right away?
I didn't know she had to sit down right now.
Now I don't feel alone anymore. Like, the gap that Katie left was weird.
So with that said, in all sincerity, as we move to the next step, you are a voting member now. So if you'd like to say or just abstain or whatever you'd like to do, that's entirely up to you. So you're stuck. Yeah.
You have a copy. Okay. We're getting you a mic.
We got you. We'll turn the fire hose on immediately. Okay, so welcome aboard. We need to approve the open enrollment requests if we can.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rachel, second by Britt. Nice to have some open enrollments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Rachel, second by Melissa to approve the consent agenda. And just, Amy already commented on the retirees, et cetera. Once again, we want to thank each of you for all your years with us, et cetera. So any other questions on the consent agenda?
I'm going to give a special shout out to June Tipton for helping my daughter with reading, but I appreciate it.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries as well. We're getting into the board calendars, and like Amy said, Wednesday evening we have our first Facilities Advisory Committee, and that's an important, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good. Moving forward, we have our Marion State of the City Address, which is kind of intriguing. City Council, Maury has that. Wall has it covered. Everything else is covered, I believe. We have a board visit late in March at Wilkins. Check the time. It's at 11 o'clock. Any other communications or anything good for the district?
Don't forget to vote.
Vote often?
Or just the one legal time you're allowed to?
Thanks for clarifying.
Barry, board communications real quick. I'd like to add just to the calendar or to the agenda for the next meeting. I had a tour with the Iowa National Guard this last week, and I can give an update. I don't know if I can do it now or do it then. Just tell me.
It's a general communication. You can share it now. If there's something specific that you want on the agenda, we can wait.
I'll share a general, and then we'll add it to the agenda. So general was that the National Guard reached out for their ESGR, which is the employer support of the Guard and Reserve. It's the organizational arm that interfaces with businesses to help them understand the shared workforce that we have between the Guard and our people. And so they invited business leaders, school board members, and whatnot from around the area to come and talk, to listen, to hear a little bit of updates about the board, as well as do a flyover with some Chinooks. We did fly over Linn-Mar, so I think if you heard that, it was a Tuesday last week. That was them. It was pretty awesome. But the takeaway from that was just the reminder. I am thankful for all of our citizen soldiers who help. And then B is that, sometimes they get called out, they have training throughout the year, but sometimes also they get called out with 12 hours notice, 8 hours notice, where they've got to go respond to a blizzard or respond to something else. And for us as businesses, it is the note, hey, boss, not going to be there tomorrow, I got to go, right? And so it's just understanding that and respecting that. And so I'd like to bring for the board next meeting here is just a resolution that we can sign just to kind of support them. So
Appreciate it. Anybody else?
We could take a look before the next meeting at what committee spots we have open. Because I would assume that since we voted in, all of us will have to officially vote in which ones Laura's going to serve on. So we'll need to look at where our openings are and have that conversation.
We need to vote in on all of them. It'll just be just one vote that approves all of that.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I would just like to take a moment to extend my appreciation and thanks to the board for entrusting me to this. I know it was a quick decision, and I'm ready to absorb all the information. Katie, can you send me the cheat sheet when you have a second? Thank you. And just, I'm sure it was incredibly hard, and I will do everything I can to kind of bring my skills and knowledge to the tables. And to everybody here, both in person and online, I'm here to serve Linn-Mar, to try to be somebody who can see all the sides and still, do what's best for Linn-Mar. So thank you for the opportunity.
Excited to have you.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Laura, you can do that.
6:32 p.m. Motion by Melissa.
Second.
Second by